All right, welcome into another edition of Carps Corner, Bobby Carpenter Show, breaking down everything from Ohio State and Indiana from this weekend. Saturday, noon kick. A couple things I wanted to see, what we wanted to look at. How did that materialize? Obviously, the game, I think, turned out the way everybody anticipated it would have. Nothing like the Northwestern game. And you had a little bit of elements in there, but nothing like there were at Northwestern. So because of that, the game kind of went according to plan, I would say, for the most part. Now, some great things that obviously happened, and some rough things that happened a little bit too that we're gonna have to dive into and talk about as well, because they're canary in the coal mine situation a little bit. Nothing as far as how the team's playing, but injury bug creeping up at some critical positions. And when you get late in the year like this, then you start to worry, could that be something that's a bigger issue? So 56-14, it's 28-7 at half. Ohio State scores rapidly in the first half, so you feel pretty good about it. CJ has one of his classic games, throwing for a boatload of touchdowns, looking really good in it. What I loved first about this game, number one, it was a clean game, no turnovers. That's great. You'd like to see some force on defense, obviously, and be able to get your hand onto football a little bit more, because they've been really good at that for a while. But the fact that this Ohio State offense did not turn the ball over was great. There were some weather conditions that we had to worry about. Looking at it, you got a little cold, supposed to be some rain. That rain converted to kind of a wet snow, so it maybe wasn't quite as difficult or adverse as maybe it could have been, but it ended up being something, it challenged you. It went from 70 degrees all week long, and all of a sudden, it's 30, 32, 35 on Saturday. So there's no way to really replicate that unless you're going to put, $100 million worth of chillers on top of the Woody Hayes so you can bring it down to icebox status. And cost $10 million to do that as well with just the power you'd be chewing up. So there's no way to simulate cold when it's been warm all week. So really the first cold weather game of the year. And I thought you watched CJ throw the football. He looked good throwing it. The guys looked good catching it for the most part. There really no complaints there. Another issue I thought, that wanted to get some things cleaned up. How tackling was an issue against Northwestern. There's some stuff against Penn State. We heard Jim Knowles talk about it in the last show. He was not happy with the tackling. Thought the tackling was better. And we'll get into some of the guys. Lathan Ransom did a really good job with that, and he had some issues against Northwestern. And so, are you correcting these moving forward? That's the question you always watch. Did you win or lose the game? Yeah, that's obviously important. But in games you're supposed to win, were you able to correct issues moving forward that they're not going to jump up again? And so you find something you did wrong. Hey, how are we going to fix this? We'll focus on it during the week. We're going to put an emphasis on it. And because you are what you emphasize, and we'll emphasize that, we'll make sure that that goes away and it's ultimately corrected. So that was great. With the tackling, we had the elements, and then also you're running the football. I think you could say that Ohio State ran the football pretty well. Now, obviously, Indiana, Tom Allen, their defense has been good since he's been there. Obviously, some injuries have gotten a hold of them, and they haven't been quite as good this year. And so that's something that you're going to look at and something you're going to want to monitor if you're Indiana. They've been tailing off dramatically. But we talked about this. And Ryan Day came out and said, and it was a great line, like, it's 3rd and 1, 4th and 1. I don't care if they have 50 guys in the box. We should be able to go and convert that. Why? Because you should be able to get a dent up front. A dent meaning we're going to get a push at the point of attack with our offensive line, with our tight end, whoever it is, H-back coming around, polars, whatever it might be. You want to get a dent. And then if there is an unblocked hat, you should expect an Ohio State running back to be able to run through the tackle of a safety or a linebacker. And you don't have to pull up for 70 yards, but you should be able to take that and go get a yard or two, even if they're sitting there at the line of scrimmage, and be able to push forward and grind out a yard. 3 feet, that's all it is, man. It's not that much. And so you saw those things ultimately happening. Ohio State, obviously, huge day running the football. My goodness, what was it? 340 some odd yards. So get into that a little bit as well. I want to give us some of the good news here. Biggest story, thing that I thought was absolutely fantastic. And Cameron Babb, the story of him. And we'll throw this up here. I mean, the guy, I believe, has had 4 ACL tears. He's been injured a ton at Ohio State. Super highly recruited guy coming in. voted captain twice. He's the Blocko dude, and gets finally a chance. I told him this. It's like, man, the day you score your first touchdown will be one of the happiest days of me being a Buckeye. Because I don't think there's anybody who is loved by his teammates more and who want to see succeed. Cam Babb is a testament to dedication. He's a testament to persistence. And he's a testament to the team spirit that embodies what it means to play at Ohio State, and his selflessness and continuing to go back after setback after setback. And the ACLs, but then small little nicks here and there. And so to watch him get in the game, awesome. To watch him catch a ball, great. But to watch him finally score a touchdown, Cameron Babb, man, just so excited, as we sit there and take a look at, what he's battled and what he's went through. So super pumped for him. Another guy, Xavier Johnson, he's kind of the hero against Notre Dame, goes down making tackles early on special teams. He's done that for a long time, former walk-on. Then you see him catch the touchdown that kind of breaks the game open. We've seen him hop in the backfield from time to time. We've seen him carry the football, carries the ball for 71 yards, man. Touchdown, buddy. Like, good. And you might need that if you're Ohio State. You're going to need some versatility. You're going to need some different things. So Xavier Johnson, another guy in that wide receiver room. And it's easy. We start talking about Marvin, and Jackson as he's battling to get back here. Julian, and Mecca, and like all these guys that are so great. But then you see guys like Cam Babb, who's a super talented guy, maybe the best athlete in that room. I'll tell you this. And I think most of those guys would confirm that. His size, his speed, his agility. I mean, he is a pretty looking athlete. And to see him out there and finally be able to pay off on some of that was awesome. But that wide receiver room, that's why it's so good. Guys like Cameron, guys like Xavier, and then the other four guys I mentioned, like, it is competitive as hell, but they all love each other and all work hard. The guy we talked about last week who struggled a little bit against Northwestern, got pulled out of the game. He's been playing really well, and he got his start because Josh Proctor struggled a little bit. Lathan Ransom, we'll throw this up, player of the game on the defensive side of the ball. 9 tackles, sack and a half, a pass breakup, playing really stinking good football. And you know what? I said last week, they pulled him out of the game for missing tackles. Lathan's another dude, grinded his way through some injuries, worked hard to come back, some serious stuff. And to watch him play this year, he's an awesome young man. He's smart. He studies it. He gets it. You know what? And then Josh Proctor hopping in the game, I believe having a tackle for loss and getting in on some plays too. And like those guys, the way they've been playing, the way they interact, and the fact that guys, when they get pulled out of the game, don't go in the tank and start feeling sorry for themselves. That's a huge testament to the culture that this team created. And Lathan was one of the guys that I wanted to watch this week to see how he would respond from that, everything that was going on and what happened last week. And he responded in a big, big way. A couple other guys that we wanted to watch. This was a game Jim Knowles might heat it up a little bit, especially with Indiana and, what they're susceptible to. And Jim Knowles got those linebackers going, Steele and Tommy. Steele, 10 tackles, half a sack. Tommy, 7 tackles, 3 of them for loss. Guys playing downhill, playing fast, and playing aggressive. Sometimes they're just running through on runs. Other times they're getting dialed up by Knowles. And it's awesome to watch these linebackers continue to grow. And it looked like it was going to be a game that they could do something like that and, have some success. And they ultimately did. So great. Another guy I was hoping to have a big game after some drops last week, Julian Fleming. Not the big numbers that you would have liked to have seen. But I know, Ryan, they're going to want to keep getting him going because he's played really well. You have a couple drops in the game. You want to try to get back on the right track because they're going to need him in a couple of weeks. And so those guys right there, kind of players to watch. And I think we saw them come up big. And then one other guy people have started to ask about. And it's like, wow, is he being as productive as we would have hoped? Especially with the emergence of JT Tuimoloau, really coming on the scene in a huge way against Penn State and starting to be really productive now. But the guy on the other side of him, that came in with him, the guy that good friends, and it was awesome. Got a chance to talk to JT's mom and how close him and Jack are, and that's part of the reason why JT wanted to come here to play with him. But Jack Sawyer having a sack and a half. How about that? That's great to see him getting going. Relentless. I believe it was the second one. You could see him come back underneath, doubling back, high effort, high energy. It's not always you beat the guy clean and you go get a sack and it's all celebration. Sometimes you got to grind for him a little bit in the game. So Jack Sawyer grinding out, getting a sack and a half and some big time production there. So that was great to see as well, to watch another young guy who started pretty fast this season, you get a little bit of a lull sometimes, and just in your production, and to watch him bounce back now and to see JT and Jack, man, those guys making plays on the edge. I think, dude, like these guys are only sophomores. Give them another year or two, and you can ultimately see some really great things happen. I love that because I liken those guys, to AJ and my relationship, watching those two play, be competitive, be friends, and always trying to see as good as you can be, and really how that helps amplify those guys on the field, because you want to be as good as you can. You're happy for your dude when he's having success. He's happy for you. And just becomes this unbelievable time where you want to try to beat them every week, and they want the same, but you also ultimately can give your dude a five, a hug, and, listen, I'm in it for you, and we're doing this thing together. Some other good stuff from the game. Third downs, Ohio State back to their 50% conversion rate, 7 of 14. Opposite side, Indiana, 3 of 17. So those are the numbers that we're much more used to seeing from Ohio State, and not that stuff against Northwestern where they were converting almost 50% on offense, and Northwestern's offense. And then, with Ohio State, when they had the ball, I believe it was 4 of 15, not good. So this is back to what it has been historically all year. And so you see it, you take the corrections. Obviously, that's not a crazy wind tunnel on offense, so it gives you the ability to convert a little bit better because you have your whole playbook opened up to you. And then defensively, getting the defense or your opponent in longer situations is going to be more advantageous. And then it opens up the playbook for Jim Knowles and what he's able to do and bring some pressure and to do some different things as well. So that was really great to see. I mentioned, you wanted to get the ground game going, 340 yards on the ground, spread a number of receivers or running backs. Miyan had a great day. Dallen Hayden got in, had over 100 yards. I did throw receivers in there because you've got Xavier Johnson carrying the ball, and you've got I believe Marvin had a carry too as well for almost 20 yards. So, trying to show some diversity with that rushing attack. And that's big. So Trey was on the shelf, did not play. Battling to get back, and I think they're being cautious with him because you're going to need him the final game of the season. And so I think they wanted to honestly probably be cautious with Miyan as well. He had 15 for $147 and a touchdown. And gosh, this is the one thing that's tough about this game is the injury to Milan Williams, because it looked rough. I mean, there's times you guys watch somebody get nicked up and you're like, okay, in and out. Miyan obviously got hurt against Penn State. Hey, it's no big deal. I'll be back. Had a little knee thing earlier this year. No big deal. Give me a week, I'll be back. This looks like it could be a little more serious, and not to go playing doctor on this thing. And this is not a check the scores. There's no inside information other than me watching it during the game. Looked like it could be like a high ankle. Those inside ankle turns like that look kind of rough. And so hopefully Miyan will be good. He's a tough guy. You saw the tough running. There's an attitude and mentality when he's out there. Hopefully in 2 weeks he'll be able to be back, even if it's not 100%, but to be able to come in some spot time, short yardage, pound it out, and bring some of that energy and some of that passion with it. And, people are like, hey, is Ryan running him too much? Well, I mean, I believe he got hurt in the first half. It was early. It wasn't late into the game. And I truly believe that, they would have set him on the shelf there, as soon as it was appropriate. But you've got to get your guys some reps, and you've got to get them some work. And they wanted to get that running game established. And so this is part of football. Injuries happen. I don't think there was any negligence or anything there. I mean, just a bad break with how all that went down. So hopefully they've got the best. I'll tell you, Ohio State has the best physical therapist you're going to find. And my guy Stu, Adam Stewart, does a great job over there with how talented he is. Their physical therapist getting guys back. So you look at this, hopefully it's a 2-week timeline and get him back for Team Up North. If not, hopefully you're playing the Big Ten Championship, and he'll be back for that. But they've got the best guy over there in Stu that you can have work on it. He is really stinking good, and they will be working on that relentlessly. I promise you this, for the next 14 days or however long it takes. Maybe it's quicker than that, but hopefully it's not much longer if that's the case. And he'll get a chance to play in the Big Ten Championship game. Dallen Hayden, great day. I said over 100 yards. He's going to have to be big now, because he's going to probably get to be the guy a lot against Maryland. I'm hoping Trey would be back a little bit for that. But maybe not. So a lot of Dallen Hayden, and then maybe Chip Trainum. You're going to get a chance to see him hop in there. He played a couple years at Arizona State at running back. He was an Akron product, physical guy, great speed. They've been working him back. Obviously, he's been playing defense, just got back to running back full time. And so there's that, the little bit of a learning curve ultimately right there that you've got to put it together and to make it ultimately happen. So hopefully we'll get a chance to see Chip in there. Excited to see him. Marvin Harrison Jr. with his usual terrific day, 7 for $135 and a touchdown. So that was awesome to ultimately see as well. One more week. Got Maryland. Don't know the game time yet. I think it might be a noon, 3:30. Hopefully, it's definitely not going to be a night game. But hopefully, take care of business there. You get tuned up, and you ultimately get to where you need to be heading into Thanksgiving weekend, as we know that is going to be a huge opportunity for Ohio State to be able to come out and ultimately get a victory. Before we get to one great bit of news for a former Ohio State player, but I think it's awesome to kind of talk about his performance on Sunday. Looking at some games around, LSU beats Arkansas 13-10, squeaks out of Fayetteville, and with Ole Miss losing to Alabama, LSU essentially controls their destiny. I mean, I believe that they've wrapped up the West in the SEC now, so I don't think anybody would have saw that happening with where they were at. Ole Miss had a chance to get something done. They thought it could have been Alabama early in the year. They were playing great, but obviously they've had some penalties and some other issues. But now all of a sudden LSU, after an early loss, and then losing to Tennessee, they've turned this thing around, and they've only got one loss in conference, and that is going to put them in a great situation heading to the final weekend. I think they only have one game left, so in conference game. So they can even afford to lose that, I believe, and still go to the SEC championship. Washington beats Oregon, which that kind of feels like it may have eliminated the Pac-12. You still have USC, you still have UCLA. They're going to play each other. So that's obviously going to happen. Notre Dame still has to play USC, and we'll get to them in a minute. So that could be another potential loss for USC, but it kind of feels like the Pac-12 might be eliminated. And then TCU survives, scare down in Austin, 17-10, and they're able to win. So they're still undefeated. And I anticipate the top 4 for the playoff will look very similar to what they were last week, probably exactly the same, with the 4 unbeaten sit there in the same order of Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, and ultimately TCU. And we'll kind of see what happens after that. But then Notre Dame squeaking away with Navy. Obviously a huge win against Clemson, play a unique brand of football in the Service Academy this week. They've got some big games coming down the stretch. Could have been a trap game. Talked to Marcus Freeman about that earlier last week on Meathead Radio with Jacob Hester, and thankfully they're able to get it done. So win looking better for Ohio State. Hopefully Notre Dame continues to win out and run the table as well. And then lastly, I want to leave you with this. Some good news for Ohio State. Justin Fields, it was looking like maybe they were going to ruin him in Chicago, and they still could do that. It's the graveyard of quarterbacks. We'll throw this up here at the end. Justin Fields becomes the only player in NFL history with 2 rush TDs, 2 pass TDs, and 100 rushing yards in a single game. And so they lost to the Lions. Lions were able to pull it out. And Justin Fields, you don't want to see him running the ball a ton. But early on, I think this is good. You utilize all of his assets as they slowly build that offense around him, get the line better. They develop their own running game without the quarterback. They got Chase Claypool coming in. Hopefully can get some better receivers, and then they'll be in a great spot. But right now, Justin Fields doing some awesome things for the Bears, and hopefully they'll continue to get him help and continue to grow that moving forward. But that's it for this show. Starting off the week, my goodness, we were running this thing frantically at a fever pitch. So we were almost done with the season and finally starting to feel like football weather here in the Midwest. So please subscribe, share it, hitting your comments. We'll have the midweek mailbag coming up, answer all your stuff, and I'll get some great Michigan memory stories here coming up soon as well. So thank you for tuning in, and we will see you soon.